Hello, welcome to another Gospel Project video. This week we are talking about the story of Jesus' resurrection. Specifically, we're looking from John chapter 20, but you can find various versions of this story and this account in all of the Gospels. In John's Gospel, he's very much focusing on his own personal role in that resurrection story. And then also focusing on Mary Magdalene's perspective. And so this is a story you're probably pretty familiar with. Jesus is taken off the cross after he's died. He is laid in a borrowed tomb. 3 days later, because they had to get him into the tomb quickly, they weren't able to prepare his body fully. And so Mary and some of the other women head to the tomb to prepare Jesus' body for final burial. And when they get there, they realize that this large stone that had been rolled in front of the tomb's entrance has been rolled away. And so how John tells it, these women go back and they tell the disciples, and John and Peter take off and head to the tomb. When they get there, they both kind of eventually make their way inside and realize that Jesus' body isn't there, that the grave clothes that he had been kind of draped in are just kind of laying there, folded up, kind of where they would have been where he was laying. And John kind of says, Peter doesn't really know what to make of this, but it says that John saw this and believed, but they were still kind of unsure as to what all this meant. And then you flip back to Mary's perspective, and Mary doesn't know what to do with all of this information, and is kind of still hanging out in this garden as the disciples have gone back to tell the rest of them. And she stumbles across a person. She thinks it's the gardener. We know it's Jesus. And she kind of says, hey, if you've taken his body somewhere, let me know, and I will take it. I'll get his body out of here. And then Jesus basically just says her name, and he says her name in such a way that she recognizes finally that it's him. And they had this short little dialogue about how, she doesn't need to grieve, that everything he said was going to happen has happened. And he kind of gives her some instruction, hey, go and tell the disciples, this is where they need to meet me, that we've got a little bit more work to do before I go back up into heaven. But yeah, so that's the story, right? It's the important part of last week's story, the crucifixion of Jesus, and this week's story, the resurrection of Jesus, is this is where everything has been pointing to since back in Genesis chapter 3, is the son of a woman, the Son of God, is going to come and is going to die. He's going to be wounded in his fight against sin, but is going to come out on the other side having defeated sin and death. And that is what the significance of the resurrection is, that when Jesus comes back to life, that is symbolic of sin and death no longer having the final say, that Jesus navigated earthly life as a human the way God intended, and he did it perfectly, with glorifying God throughout the whole thing and living it sinlessly. He was the ultimate sacrifice to pay the price for all of humanity's sins, and he's died and then he rises again. And that is our story this week. The big idea is just this, that Jesus, in resurrecting, defeated sin and death. As always, there's additional resources on our website. And until I see you again in person or in the next video, God bless.